JJK just dropped possibly some of the most underrated chapters in the recent Jujutsu history. These past couple of chapters haven't really been to everyone's liking, and I totally get it. I get it. The change up in pace has been painful to deal with. I will say that we've had like 13 chapters of Gojo v Sukuna. Then we got that little hype moment of Kashimo arriving, getting bodied, and then we have Yuji arriving and landing on the battlefield, getting ready to throw hands, only for JJK to just subvert expectations and switch over to Kenjaku and what he's been doing. And it was a bit of a flashback, and personally, I fully understand the criticism. I do. I'm on board with it. I fully get it. I was mildly upset when we weren't getting Yuji v Sukuna, but I will say the change of pace is welcome, so I did feel very conflicted, and I still do feel conflicted about it. But now we're here at chapter 241, and honestly, I think one of the most unrated and possibly overhated chapters that we've had in a little while here, because when I was streaming the leaks, a good majority of the people in my chat here were mentioning how this was an L chapter. They didn't like it. It was just bummy chapter. JJK can't cook anymore, which I kind of disagreed with at the time, but now that the full translations are out with, I fully disagree. I fully disagree with those people saying this is an L chapter. And also, speaking of translations, did you know that you could translate over to my second channel where I'm dropping gaming content every week now, which is kind of exciting. So we're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. We're just over 700 right now. So if you guys want to go over there, go check it out, maybe subscribe. That would really help your boy out. But this chapter really drops some heavy lore for Takaba, and honestly, it's a welcome switch up for me personally. This last chapter just saved to show us just how manipulative Kenjaku is, and I'll get into that in a little bit second, so make sure you stick around for that. But this Takaba lore, it really went hard, and it drove home just how emotional Takaba's character actually is. And I know a lot of people think Takaba is a gag character, and personally, I've never really thought of him like this. However, I've always thought of Takaba more in the same aspect of Deadpool, a character that's just silly, goofy, a menace, and he's also powerful, and he also breaks the fourth wall. And I always thought that it was going to be interesting on how JJK was going to handle his character. JJK, he actually does take it a step further with Takaba being able to warp reality in certain ways, and that's a pretty powerful ability, which obviously has now stemmed the many memes and arguments of, oh well, Takaba could just say, oh well, wouldn't it be funny if Gojo didn't die? Gojo's dead. Accept it. He's not coming back. Maybe he is. Who fucking knows? What do I know? And obviously, stuff like this is just absolutely, you know, it could happen. It could happen, but that's not the story JJK is trying to tell, and it's obviously evident by the fact that Takaba's encounter with Kenjaku here, because in these past 2 chapters alone, JJK has outlined a couple of things here. 1, Takaba's powers, his resolves, his backstory, and his motives. He's fleshed those out perfectly within this chapter, I feel. Him going through the motions, going through the years of Takaba, being a comedian, trying to find his place, and really driving home his emotional backstory. I pretty much enjoy it. It makes me feel a little bit more connected to Takaba as a character as a whole. And then 2, just how manipulative Kenjaku actually can be. This is something that we have seen twice now from not only Sukuna, but now Kenjaku. Sukuna emotionally manipulated Hana into thinking that he was Megumi and inviting her in for a hug, only for him to rip her a heart in Sunday. He just ripped her in half. He ripped her in 2. When you really think about it, that is brutal. He fully manipulated this woman into thinking he was someone she loved and she had cured him, only for him to then bite her in half, which is kind of, it's brutally fucked up. And now we have Kenjaku, who within the space of 2 chapters was able to see Takaba's curse technique, figure out what it was and how it works, and then systematically dismantle him before starting to beat him down brutally, which now leads us to this point at chapter 241, with Takaba's flashback and his resolves to make Kenjaku laugh, but also vomit his guts up, which is kind of a wild thing to say. However, I believe personally that this is actually foreshadowing for Takaba's possible victory. Since Takaba appeared, I've given 5 chapters of fighting Kenjaku. He either bites the dust or he ends up having to retreat, but on the basis that he's actually ended up nerfing Kenjaku. I feel like JJK has set up Takaba's character to do something incredible, and I've had this crackpot theory now for a long time that he's actually been affecting the story. I can't quite prove it, but I think he ended up affecting how Gojo was released when Gojo was unsealed, and obviously it's been hinted at within the story that he helped save Angel after Sukuna bit him. So far, Kenjaku has also used nothing against Takaba but Curse Spirits. He's not used any of his other techniques, and they've had almost 0 effect on Takaba when his Curse technique is active. So I think Takaba is going to end up forcing Kenjaku to use a bunch of his Curse Spirits, which will end up nerfing him in for future battles, because as I've said now a couple of times, I think the way that the chapters are going and the way the fights with Sukuna and Kenjaku are going, I think it's just going to be a case of the team is going to have to whittle down Sukuna and Kenjaku. Obviously, they're both colossal titans. I mean, Kenjaku literally dusted his hands off after being sucked sucked into a black hole, tanked that shit, walked out the other side and said, that was a good warm-up. And then on the other side of the battlefield, we have fucking Sukuna, who is just obviously Sukuna. He needs no explanation. He needs no introductory. So I'm thinking along the lines of now every time these guys are going to get into a fight, they're going to be slowly but surely chipped down and nerfed away as the Jujutsu High students and teams start just throwing more and more fighters at them and eventually just overwhelming them in a contest of endurance. But I also am really enjoying the parallels between Takaba and Gojo and them being strong but also lonely at the same time. It's a trope that Gege's really been hammered home perfectly throughout the entirety of almost the Culling games, and it's also something that I'm very, very much enjoying right now. This whole, you know, strength and the solitude that it brings is kind of nice, especially when Takaba has already been compared to Gojo having a chaos technique that could oppose him. I think it's kind of interesting. But overall, I actually really enjoyed this chapter. I kind of understand the dislike for the pacing issues. I get it. I also want to see Yuji versus Sukuna. I also want to see Yuji and Higuruma getting into it with Sukuna. I want to see that. But also at the same time, we do need to find out what the fuck Kenjaku has been doing, because that dude has been missing now for a very long time. And everyone throughout the Gojo Sukuna fight was like, yo, where is Kenjaku? Where's this? Where's this? You know? And I think narratively, fitting Kenjaku in within the Sukuna and Gojo fight, it didn't really fit, because Kenjaku didn't want to be anywhere near Gojo. He knew that, and it's actively been stated, I can't move freely while Gojo was out and around. So it didn't really fit in. Whilst Gojo and Sukuna were fighting, Kenjaku was now free to move around, and that's what we're getting now. And I think narratively, while it is jarring, I feel like it's the only place that you could have placed this that would make a whole lot of sense. I think anywhere else outside of this would have just felt random. Having the fight continuing and watching us see Yuji and Higuruma fighting Sukuna and then still not knowing what Kenjaku's doing, only for us to then switch over to him after that fight, it would just be jarring. At some point, it was going to have to happen, and I think I would rather have it happen now, so that when we do go back to the Yuji versus Higuruma fight, we just get that fight uninterrupted the exact same way we got Gojo versus Sukuna. And I think that's what Gege's trying to do now. He's trying to wrap up this little side plot, potentially into other side plots, before bringing us back. Because don't forget that this, what is happening right now within these chapters, is actually a flashback. It's still right now, as Kenjaku is fighting this, it's more than likely Sukuna is still fighting Kashimo, or he has just finished his fight and this is all happening in between. So this is still a flashback. At this point in time, right now, as we are seeing it, Yuji actually hasn't even arrived to the battlefield. So I have to believe, or I'm speculating here, that Kenjaku and this fight is probably going to lead us up to the battlefield, and could potentially even have Kenjaku arriving on the battlefield with Sukuna, knowing that the rest of the Culling game players are going to come to the battlefield to try and fight Sukuna. So who fucking knows? I don't know. But overall, I think the chapter was a solid chapter. At first, I was a bit iffy about it, but now that I've seen the full translations, I actually really enjoyed it. I think it was a solid way for Gege to really flesh out Takaba. But as always, that is everything from me. If you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. That always helps me out. And also, if you haven't, join the Discord. I'll leave a link in the comments down below. And we have one of those, you know. Also, don't forget to check out the second channel. Should be a card on screen for that right now if you want to go check that out. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers on that. That'd be kind of cool if we could do that. But as always, I will catch you guys all in the next one. Much love, big kisses, peace.